In the recent past, in Nigeria, in the Nigerian Christian community, there has been this trend of ministers speaking against the fact that, word ministers, in other words, the preachers or pastors, speaking against the tendency for music ministers or gospel musicians to ask for money when going for a ministration or what normally as a performance. And I think some gospel artists or some other musicians, I think one of them said he's not necessarily a gospel musician, that he's a musician but he does gospel songs and all that, or he's a Christian, I think, whatever it was. But the point here is there's been the back and forth between both parties, the Christian musicians and the Christian preachers or the pastors. Excuse me, please. For me, I've been around for a while in the Christian society or the Christian faith, and I'm not trying to say I'm a pastor or anything. Nah, I'm not. I'm just a human being trying to do my best, trying to live each day as much as I can. But my take on it is, or what I think is, that sometimes these pastors are living, or they live lives that most people admire. And sometimes they're unaware that human tendency is for everybody to feel like they are seen or they are celebrated. Everybody wants to walk into a room and get recognized, especially in this day and age of social media, where it's easy to become a star. I mean, I'm doing the podcast right now, and before now, I would not even have a platform to speak. If I needed to even be seen or be heard, I would need to gather an amount of money and go to a radio station or a TV station to be heard. And the amount of money you need to pay for such platforms was pretty humongous, was huge. I know that from experience, not personal experience, but back then, some years ago, this was maybe 2006, I used to go pay for one of my friends who was a preacher. I used to go to a radio station to pay for his quarterly bill, and it was pretty huge. Now, fast forward to these recent times of social media and YouTube and all that. Everybody wants to have a platform. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. And for the longest time, people were not given the platform, or people did not have access to the platforms. And so the few people who had access to the platforms were seen as celebrities. Now, unbeknownst to these pastors who are sort of celebrities to us, the congregation, the people that the pastor or the rule over are actually humans. And that's what they tend to forget, that these people are human. And by human nature, we want to be heard, want to be seen, want to be celebrated. When it's these pastors' birthdays, or when they show up for an event, everybody recognizes them and accords to them a certain amount of respect. Now, these musicians, these gospel musicians, equally want to be celebrated, especially when it is known that their contemporaries in secular music are actually celebrated, right? In fact, on a personal level, I've even wondered why most of the secular artists tend to start from the church, and after a while they go into the secular world. And I think that maybe the secular world tends to celebrate them better, thereby feeding their innate human ego crave, right? I don't think that it is too wise of the pastors to think that, it is okay for them to be seen, to be heard, to be celebrated, and then for their congregants, and especially the musicians, the gospel ministers, to not be celebrated, especially financially. Now, I know there are arguments about the fact that, you're doing this thing for the Lord. In fact, one of the preachers had to say that, that you go out there and you sing, and then God is going to provide. Some sort of Jehovah Jireh scenario. Probably getting an idea from the fact that, Abraham goes in the Bible goes to sacrifice, make a sacrifice to God, and then but he does not know where the ram or the animal of sacrifice is going to come from. So this pastor was trying to say that, go out there and then sing, and then the people should just, with their own free will, give you whatever they have. And then it should equally, that amount of faith should be reflected in your backup singers and your team. I don't think that makes sense. It's not even practical. It doesn't even make sense. A lot of the things we do in life are fueled by money. They are fueled by money. Even your reputation is fueled by money. And depending on how you package yourself, how you put yourself together, that's the extent to which even your fans will appreciate your music. Now, I understand that some of these pastors have funded these musicians. They are funded these musicians and boosted their career paths. I understand that, and I'm grateful on behalf of the musicians. But again, if these people keep waiting for you to spoon feed them financially, the day they get something wrong, they may be penalized. And it's usually wise to build your brand or whatever it is you do based on structures that are timeless. In other words, you build business structures and ensure that, okay, these are your rates, this is how you get paid. Like there's a science to your spiritual responsibilities. And I don't think there's harm in asking for money or trying to know what the financial gain is. Let me give you a classic example. In the Bible, when David and Goliath, the story of David and Goliath, do you know that David just went to give his brothers who were in the army food? And then he asked a soldier there what will be given. I'm talking about material stuff. What will be given to the person that kills Goliath, that takes him down, right? And they said, the king is going to give you a portion of the kingdom. The king is going to give you his daughter. The king is going to make your family, he's going to exempt your family from taxes. Do you know that David, who we all celebrate, in fact, the Bible refers to him as a man after God's heart. Do you know that David asked two more people? In other words, he asked a total of 3 people the same questions, as though he needed to be sure or be certain of the financial or material gain he was going to get from that. Now, when he did that, when he was sure that these were the words of the king, you're going to be exempt, your family is going to be exempted from taxes, and you're going to marry the king's daughter, and you're going to get a portion of the kingdom. I hope I'm getting that right. I'm not a pastor, so I may tweak 1 or 2 things. Probably go research this for yourself. He went back and told the king, I think it was King Saul, told him, I'm going to kick this guy's ass. In other words, I'm going to take Goliath down. It's easy to just say, David worshiped the Lord and he danced and all that. That's what we want to remember. But we tend to pay a blind eye to the fact that the major thing that makes David is the fact that he killed Goliath. And that particular incident that transformed his life was based, the material incentive was what drove him. Yes, I understand when he had to meet Goliath and told him, you can't be insulting God's people, you can't be, trying to raise yourself above God's people and all that. I'm just paraphrasing. So in other words, he equally had a spiritual anger towards the fact that Goliath was defying God's people. But you would also know that he struck a balance between his heart and his head. He struck a balance between the spiritual and the mundane or the material. He struck a balance between fulfilling God's spiritual purpose and fulfilling his human needs as a literal human. Because if you don't have resources, even the Bible says that you are worse than an infidel if you cannot take care of your family. So these musicians, these gospel musicians who actually go there and rehearse and practice and are faithful in church, trust me, I've been in the church for a long time, so I understand how committed some of these people are. These people actually have families. And believe you me, even these pastors that are preaching, if one of those ministers come and meet them to marry any of their daughters and says something like, I want to marry your daughter, the guy is going to wonder how you tend to feed her and your prospective family. Are you then going to say, like one of the preachers had admonished these musicians, that they should go there in faith and then God is going to provide for them? Are you going to tell the pastor that? This is ridiculous. This is, somebody said, this is redonkulous. Are you going to ask the pastor? Are you going to tell the pastors that your plan for taking care of their family, their daughter, is based on faith? I'm just me thinking out loud here and wondering what you think. So just let me know, because I'm here to explain what I think and get feedback from you guys too. So thank you.